Well, thank you very much for inviting me. There's nothing I enjoy more than talking about bat boxes. So the contents of today's talk. Details and results from one site comparing data from two styles of bat boxes over 10 years. The results of how successful the 10 styles of bat boxes used by the Vincent Wildlife Trust have been, or how unsuccessful they've been, and a summary of the major findings. And I will apologise now about the number of slides and charts in the slideshow. I've tried to break it up with some nice pretty pictures of bats for you to break it up. I won't ask you what species they are, but you can have a guess in your own mind. And when I tell you what they are, you can say, yes, that was the species I said it was. So the background to the project. Well, basically, like all good projects, it was set up in a bar back in 1993. Tony Mitchell-Jones, who worked for Natural England, and Derek Yalden, who worked for Manchester University, were talking about the dearth of knowledge on Bechstein's bats in the UK. Simply, we didn't know anything about them. In the last 100 years, apparently, there had only been 100 Bechstein's bats found. But Derek also mentioned that the German bat researchers had recorded Bechstein's bats using the 2FN Schwegler bat box in Germany. So later that year, I imported 50 Schwegler bat boxes and decided to erect them in deciduous woodland in southern England. So the basis of the project was very simple. Was to see if Bechstein's bats would be attracted to this new style of concrete bat box. And the secondary aim was to evaluate the performance of this bat box, or were they any better than the traditional wooden square boxes that have been used in the United Kingdom for the last since the 1960s. So the chosen site was Fonthill in central southern England. It had regular records of Bechstein's bats hibernating nearby in underground fortifications, rather similar to this. The RAF stored their bombs there during the Second World War. It was an ancient woodland on a large private estate. The site was flat with open rides, which was quite useful because the Batmobile that the Trust supplied was pretty rubbish at carrying bat boxes and had very little ground clearance. And it had conservation-friendly owners, so it was quite useful as well. Later on, of course, he supplied me with a decent Batmobile which could get over the ground slightly easier. This is Fonthill. This is the site beg your pardon. This is the site I'm going to talk about in the first part of the talk, Fonthill in central southern England, about 40 miles from the south coast. The other odd black dots around the site, around the map, is the other bat box sites we've had going over a number of years. So Eric, if you want a picture of a decent wooden bat box, where's Eric too? He's just given the talk. You know, that's what a wooden bat box looks like. You don't have to turn up a bird box upside down. So these are the two different boxes we used. The traditional wooden box, untreated timber, and the concrete Schwegler box, also known as woodcrete. The shape was cuboid, as opposed to a domed cylinder. The height was 400 millimetres and 420 millimetres. That includes the backplate and the handle. The width, 200 mil, 160, 180, 160. Weight 2.1 and 4.3 kilos. That wasn't really an issue because no bat was ever strong enough to carry one off. The volume was 2.55 cc or 2,575 cubic centimetres. Internal roost surface area, including the floor, 902 and 905 square centimetres. So although the construction materials and the shape of the boxes are entirely different, the dimensional characteristics of each box are very, very similar. So early in 1994, I erected 100 bat boxes, 50 of each, except I had 51 wooden boxes, and being incredibly lazy, I didn't want to take the wooden bat box back to the Batmobile, so I erected that one as well. Twice as many boxes faced north and south as east and west. That wasn't for any particular reason. We chose sites for wooden boxes first because they were more difficult to find. A wooden box really has to be erected on a vertical surface, smooth and clutter-free. So we chose wooden box sites first and then matched it with a Schwegler box because they were hung on bits of wire, and wherever they were hung vertically. So 100 boxes, 50 Schwegler, 51 wooden boxes, total of 101 in total. And the survey results over that 10-year period, 57 of 60 surveys, they were surveyed between April and September, so 6 summer surveys, and 3 were missed. And the first June survey was missed because being a good conservationist, I didn't want to disturb bats in June for fear of upsetting pregnant or lactating animals, and so I didn't survey that. But English Nature, who helped me set up the project, said, oh, you've got to survey them in June because we know nothing about beckstings and they might move in for just a few days, so you better inspect them in June as well. So after the 1st June, which I didn't survey for the following 9 years, I surveyed every June as well. And in April and May 2001, those surveys were omitted because in England we had foot and mouth disease, which meant that many landowners wouldn't let us visit their land, so we had to omit those 2 surveys as well. This brought a total of just over 5,700 box inspections, 2,849 Schwegler's. 1 was missed because a tree fell down and knocked one off the adjacent tree. And 2,878 wooden box inspections, 29 were missed. And these were missed due to woodpecker damage, squirrel damage, and when we fitted on the trees, we fixed them using wooden dowels. So as the tree grew, the box moved along the dowel. The squirrels thought these were incredibly tasty, chewed off the dowels, and that meant the box fell to the floor as well. And this resulted in some 1,813 bat records. Going on to the survey results, species and totals per box type. Pipistrelles, well, of course, when we started the survey, we didn't realise there was 2 species of pipistrelles in the country, so I've lumped them both together as 45/55. And we can see we had 168 in the wooden, 339 in the Schwegler's. Long-eared bats, well, if I mention long-eared, it's going to be brown long-eared because I've not recorded grey long-eared in the boxes yet. So 217 to 1,023 long-eareds. Natters, 3 and 4, so no significant difference there. Noctules, 1 and 14, no significant difference there. Whiskered, 2 and 0, nothing there. Becksteins, never recorded in the wooden boxes, and 42 times in the Schwegler. So just under 400 bats were recorded in the wooden boxes, and just over 1,400 were recorded in the concrete ones. I heard someone mention about bat boxes not being used for a long period. Well, this was the first 5 years, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and after 5 years, all 100% of the Schwegler boxes had been used. After 5 years, 82% or 41 of the wooden boxes had been used, and after 5 years, between years 6 and 10, no other wooden boxes were adopted by bats. I say cumulative box uses, that includes bat droppings, just to prove that the bats had been in there. So after 5 years, all the concrete boxes had been used, and 82% of the wood boxes. So really after 5 years, we could have taken down the wooden boxes that hadn't been moved and moved into a similar place, a similar site. Total bats recorded annually, generally an upward trend. As you'll find with most bat box schemes, the longer the project goes on, the more bats and the more species are recorded. In 1996 we had a particularly cold, wet summer, so we didn't record many bats at all. In April and May 2001 we didn't undertake those 2 surveys, so hence we've got a low number there. In the year 2000, a low figure, and I can't give you a reason at all why we had a low figure in 2000. Total bats per box type per month. Wooden boxes remain remarkably consistent in attracting bats throughout every summer month, and the concrete boxes attracts increasing numbers of bats throughout every summer month except August, which happens to be the wooden box's best month. A quick break from seeing charts and tables.
I see a box.
One of my colleague sites in Wales, John Messenger, yes, in the Wye Valley, he had lots of Daubenton's. He was studying his Daubenton's there. So I'll let you all have a quick think, because you all know, of course, it's the greater mousy bats. We don't have them in England, or very few. All bat species data aspect box type. Number of occasions bats were recorded, all species. Now the occasions bats were recorded, it could be 1 bat, it could be 20 bats, it could be 30 bats, it could be 40 bats. So this is, if there's a bat recorded, it's an occasion a bat was recorded. So in north-facing Schwegler boxes, bats were recorded on 100 occasions. South-facing, 116. Well, the chart, the table's pretty obvious. 62 times in north-facing wooden boxes. east-facing wooden boxes didn't seem to be very popular at all, but south boxes, wooden boxes, seem to be quite popular. Now, if you've got a lot of boxes in a very small woodland, of course you could put your boxes up like this, but this is another way of showing the data that I've just showed you in that table in a compass chart or a radar chart. So this is the same data, so we have the same data here in this table, but it's now in a compass chart. So if you imagine that's the tree in the centre of the compass, and these are the aspects north, south, east and west. And we can see from here that the north-facing, south-facing and west-facing Schwegler boxes seem to be quite popular, and the north and south-facing wooden boxes are also popular, but the west and east-facing wooden boxes aren't very popular.
West and east have half the numbers, right?
Sorry?
West and east have half the numbers of north and south? Yeah. Half the numbers of boxes?
On the occasions, well, we're talking about the occasions bats were recorded, not numbers of bats that were recorded.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
There were twice as many bat boxes, numbers of bat boxes.
Yes, facing north and south as east and west.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. You're jumping to the next slide. If you remember, twice as many boxes face north and south as east and west. So, if you put down the occasions bats will record as a percentage of boxes available, we can see that the west-facing Schwegler boxes were still quite favourable, but the north and south and east-facing were less favourable. And again, the wooden boxes, there seemed to be very little preference apart from the east not being liked by bats. The total number of bats recorded, again, north and south facing Schwegler, north and south facing Schwegler boxes, very popular. North and south facing wooden boxes, popular, but nowhere near as popular as the concrete boxes. And again, east and west facing boxes, not very popular. But if we present it as the data has twice as many boxes facing north and south as east and west, we can see quite clearly that bats don't prefer any aspect at all, and they don't seem to like east-facing wooden boxes. But again, the Schwegler boxes are far outperforming the wooden boxes at this particular site. Greaters or lessers? I know you're all thinking, is it greaters or lessers? They are lessers. Going on to the individual species, the pipistrelles. Pipistrelles were almost exclusively found alone, so it didn't really matter how I presented this data, but there was always a preference for west-facing Schwegler boxes, and south-facing wooden boxes were the most popular for the pipistrelles. On to the brown long-eared bats. The occasions brown long-eareds were recorded as expressed as a percentage of boxes available. Again, north and south, east and west, very little difference between the two. They seem to prefer north-facing. If they did use the wooden boxes, they seem to prefer the north-facing wooden boxes. And brown long-eared numbers recorded as expressed as a percentage of boxes available. Again, very little difference between any of the aspects at all, except, of course, that the Schwegler boxes were far more favourable than the wooden ones. Occupation rate at this site. Over a 10-year period, 1,800 bats of 7 species recorded from 5,727 inspections. Bats were recorded on 576 occasions, and overall occupation rate at the time of survey of just over 10%. Wooden boxes recorded on bats on 193 occasions, an occupation rate of 6.7%. And Schwegler boxes recorded bats on 383 occasions, an occupation rate of 13.4%. And I'll come back to that 13.4% a bit later on. Cluster size in the wooden boxes, 168 pips. The average cluster size was only 1.1. The long-eared bats, the average cluster size was 4.5. Schwegler boxes for pipistrelles 1.54, so very little difference. As I said, most of the pipistrelles were recorded alone on very small clusters. And the Schwegler boxes, the average cluster size of a long-eared bat colony in a Schwegler box was just under 10 or 9.54 animals. So summary at Font Hill, more than 3 times as many bats were recorded in the Schwegler boxes than the wooden ones. 5 times as many Brang long-eared bats were recorded using the Schwegler boxes than the wooden boxes. Brang long-eared bats outnumbered all the other species put together by a ratio of over 2 to 1, and twice as many pipistrelles were recorded in the Schwegler boxes than the wooden ones. And apart from the Brang long-eareds and pipistrelles, the numbers of other bat species recorded were so low that no meaningful analysis is viable, except of the 42 Becksteins recorded, they are only ever recorded using the Schwegler boxes. So the conclusions at Fonthill: overall bats seem to prefer Schwegler boxes. Pipistrelle bats prefer west-facing Schwegler boxes, followed by south-facing Schwegler south-facing Schwegler and wooden boxes, and long-eared bats prefer Schwegler boxes facing any direction. Quick break from seeing more tables and charts. Anybody brave enough to shout out what it might be? No. Don't blame me, it's a Dorbenton's. Yes, that's what you thought. Yes, I thought you might have said that, yeah. Yeah. You've got no excuse, you've seen the slideshow last night.
I didn't want to give away.
This is a rather easy part of the talk now. A brief roundup of the other 51 sites. And we're currently running 5 sites in Ireland, Wales and England. And where possible, local bat groups or wildlife trusts survey the other sites on our behalf, and we share the data. 10 bat box types have been used over the last 25 years, and the height of boxes range between 3 and 11 metres. Now, for health and safety reasons, any bat boxes we install now are fairly low, just to make it a bit safer for me and the volunteers that help me. So what is the most successful bat box? Well, it depends on what defines successful. Is it the total number of bats recorded? Is it the frequency or number of occasions bats, or their droppings, of course, are recorded? I forgot to say that when I did inspect the boxes, I cleaned out the droppings at every inspection, so I could record usage on a monthly basis, which is quite important. Is it the total number of species recorded, or does the rarity of the bat make the box more successful? So let's have a look. The overall results, this is quite old data now. I've only got 67,000 records of inspections. I've found 23,000 bats. I now have approaching 100,000 bat box inspections. I haven't totaled the number of bats yet. And we've recorded 12 species, possibly 13, because one bat flew off and we didn't know, wasn't sure what it was. It's probably one of those, but we couldn't be sure. I think we've got, yes, we have recorded ceratines on 7 occasions in bat boxes. They are extremely rare to find in bat boxes. So the 1FF, which is the big crevice-dwelling bat, crevice-imitating bat box, imitates loose bark or splits in trees. Just over 11,000 inspections, 3,000 bats, 1,300 occasions, a 12% occupancy rate, and we've recorded confirmed 9 species, possibly 11. Big hibernation box, these are quite interesting, very heavy to get up trees as well. You don't want to put these close to woodland edges if you can. If you can drive your car there, so much the better. 406 inspections, 1,700 bats, nearly a 21% occupancy rate, and 6 species of bats we've recorded. And I've had up to, although there's over 100 Becksteins, I think my record is 123 Becksteins bats have been recorded in one of these boxes. Again, favoured by noctules. I often get noctules and Becksteins together in these boxes. The Becksteins are in there breeding and the noctules are in there with them. Mostly males, often not breeding. Of course, getting bats out of a big bat box has one fundamental flaw, in so much when I first opened a large bat box with 100 Becksteins in, 95 of the Becksteins bats flew past my ear. I managed to catch 5 of them. So I had to invent a way to getting the bats out without losing them. So I invented this sort of big windsock that goes over the box, and I crawl up inside it, tie it around my waist, and put all the bats in bags before handing them out to my colleague who's standing behind me on the ladder. And if you're lucky enough, you might see a nice big cluster of Becksteins bats in the boxes.
And in which time is that? Is it in August or September?
That is always in late July. I ring all my new babies in late July. They're almost fully grown in late July. This year was an exception. When I visited in late July this year, all of the bats were still pregnant, and the juveniles were very, those juveniles that were present were very small. And I averaged 40 babies per year. This year I only had 13 babies, so it was a very poor year. It matched 2006 when we had a cold, wet summer there, and I only had 13 babies in the summer as well. Again, I've got very few of these boxes. I think I've only got 30 of these boxes. The 2F, very high occupancy rate, 22% occupancy rate. 7 species, 984 bats have been recorded. And the 2FN, one that I've talked about in the first part of the talk, I mentioned the 13.8% occupancy rate at Font Hill. When you take into account all the 54 sites, the occupancy rate goes down to 7.5%. So at that site in southern England, where there's lots of bats of lots of species, obviously it's more favoured. The more north and east you go, where there's fewer species and fewer bats, it's obviously not adopted by bats quite so frequently. And we've had up to 66 Becksteins in one of these boxes, 9 species in total. Long-eared bats seem to like them, Becksteins of course, and occasionally we find dormice in them as well. All the other species of animals we find in the bat boxes, I certainly don't mind finding the occasional dormouse. Another exciting species, but not quite so popular, is the hornet. This is a site near Salisbury in Wiltshire where I had 100 of these boxes in 1 year alone. Of the 100 boxes, 54 of the boxes had hornets' nests, so more than 1 in 2. And those of you that have opened a bat box with a hornet's nest in, it's quite exciting. You can get down the ladder very quickly when there's a couple of hundred angry hornets flying around your head.
Becksteins are still using it when they're inside.
Yes, I found quite a few pipistrelles roosting behind. When the hornets' nests are quite small, just a small, perhaps the size of an orange, I often find pipistrelles roosting. But you've got to be very brave to put your hand in to get the pipistrelle out if there's hornets.
With the net around you?
No.
Make sure that they won't escape.
Yes. No. Bats in your hair is one thing, but the hornets is another matter at all. This is a bat box. I adapted a bat box, a larger bat box that Frank Greenaway invented. I made it shorter and easier to use. And I erected 30 of them in woodland in southwest England. It's quite a successful bat box. It hasn't been used very long, but it has got a 10% occupancy rate. And since I put this slideshow together, we've also had nocturals and barbastels using them as well. So it's quite a successful, cheap bat box to make. And this is one of the same boxes with a line of, I think, 6 or 7 pipistrelles there, and another pipistrelle there, which is probably a bit smelly, which is why it's not roosting with these 6 or 7 sides.
Sorry, Colin, can you extract the bats from that readily?
No, you can't.
Yeah.
The only way you can do it, the ones I made there, I screwed the box lids down so they couldn't be inspected, but unless you've got a reason to extract a bat from a bat box, we tend to identify them. If you had to catch them, I think you'd have to go there in the evening and put a net below them and catch them as they emerge. You could put a rubber strap over the top to hold it in place and then take it off that way. But on that side, we weren't interested in extracting the bats at all, so we just left them screwed down. A chap in Wales invented this bat box. It's made out of thermalite, a very lightweight thermalite building block, if you like. And they're very soft. You can cut them in half with a knife quite easily. And he cut these blocks in half, scooped out the insides with a spoon, and glued both halves together and made a little hole in the bottom for the bats to crawl in. It's rubbish. 510 inspections and 1 bat, possibly 2 species, 1 pipistrelle, so you can tell what species, and there's no way of getting a bat out of there. I think last year actually they did find a liceless in them, but I haven't included that in the data. A colleague of mine invented the messenger bat box, again, not very good, 510 inspections and just 20 bats, occupancy rate of just 3.7%. And there's an empty box just to prove how rubbish it is. Sorry, John, didn't mean it. And this is the ubiquitous traditional wooden bat box. SW stands for Stebbings, Walsh and Bob Stebbings. adapted the wooden bird box that was used for the last 100 years. Didn't bother with the hole in the front, just made the slot at the back for the bats to crawl up inside. Similar occupancy rate than the 2FM, but that's occupancy rate, not numbers of bats. Numbers of bats in this regular box is far outperforms this one. And 6 species, possibly 7, have been used using this box. The wedge box is particularly adopted by bats. 165 inspections, 187 bats, a 13% occupancy rate, but so low numbers that we can't really provide any conclusive evidence it's a particularly good bat. A good bat box, sorry, it's just for good woodland for bats, and they happen to be the only places that the bats could roost in. As you can see, health and safety is a priority. It wasn't me up the ladder, I don't know who it was. I think I gleaned that picture off the internet, so I do apologise if it's one of you. So guessing time again. She's going to say, small bat, we put a small bat, and this is a giant or an ogre. White tummy, so it's going to be one of the Myota species. Little black face, little black ears, curved back slightly at the end. And that has to be a whiskered bat. So what is the best bat box? The raw data is here. Like the bat box, inspections, occasions, bats recorded, number of bats, species, average cluster size, bats per inspection. I've only highlighted that one because it's got some nice big numbers in it. I know you all like big numbers. So for species, if you want numbers of species, go for the 1FF and the 2FN. We have 9 confirmed species using those boxes, down to the margin, which only have 1 species. For finding a bat, then go for the 2F. You only have to open 4.41 boxes to actually find a bat. So that's quite useful if you just want to find bats, which is a good PR exercise. If you're taking members of the public out to see bats, get 2F boxes. For clusters of bats, then go for the big 1FW, although very expensive. The average cluster size is approaching 21 bats. And the best boxes for finding rare bats is the 1FF, 2FN, and the 1FW for Barlowsdale Ecksteins, and again, Ecksteins bats. If you really want to go into in-depth bat box information, you can download this free report from the Vincent Wildlife Trust website. It's full of lots of pictures and diagrams and lots of Greek data that I don't understand. A biostatistician wrote it for me. I just done all the field work, gave him the data. I've got 2 copies here. If you're very, very nice to me, remember it's my birthday, you might be able to persuade me to give you one of these copies. If not, you can go to our website and download it free. It's 63 pages long, so I hope you've got a big ink cartridge, big colour ink cartridge. So the final summary, and most of this summary comes from this bat box report, not what I've talked about for the last 20 minutes. Occupancy rates showed a clear winter trough, was less than 2% in February, rising to 10% in August. There's a highly significant difference in occupancy rates between bat box types. In general, concrete boxes were preferred to wooden ones. In occupancy rates, bat count and species all increased significantly the longer the bat box scheme went on. And bat box height seemed to have a significant effect on occupancy time and first use by naturalist bats, who seem to prefer lower boxes. This is quite significant. At one of my sites where I've been studying Ecksteins for the last 14 years, I was getting a bit scared because the boxes were very high, between 9 and 10 metres, and I lowered them down to 6 or 7 metres, and there had been no naturals recorded on that site for 14 years, and as soon as I lowered the boxes, a colony of naturals moved in. Maybe pure coincidence, but I think it was quite significant that they moved in after 14 years. The end. Thank you.